fake the handoff. Throw on the far side. Complete. Getting upfield to the 40, to the 45. Makes a man miss to the 50. 45 to the 40. 35, 30, 25, 20. 15, 10, 5. Touchdown. Anthony DeCenzo.
Live on the Westmoreland Sports Network. This is Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Powered by Bowser. Here's your hosts, Sean Myers and Dan Flickinger.
We welcome you into another episode of Westmoreland on the Gridiron, powered by Bowser, right here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. You know who we are, but just in case, we'll introduce ourselves once again. I am Sean Myers, and you
am Dan Flickinger.
There we go. Perfect. And Sean and Dan, we got a lot to get to this week. It is all of the scores from week 5 of the high school football season, the top performers as well. Hard to believe we're beyond the halfway point of the regular season. Of course, we will have more plays of the week. We will have interviews with the head coach of the Hempfield area Spartans, Nick Kiefer, and the star running back for the rival Norwin Knights, Giovanni Rotroff, as well as a look ahead week 6 preview. Some of the best games I think that we're going to have in Westmoreland County all season will be upcoming this weekend. But Flick, we had some big ones this past week as well. And I think one of the biggest takeaways is Hempfield area with a big bounce back victory. And this is the type of win, don't want to get too far ahead, that maybe gets the Spartans into the playoffs, or at least certainly gives them the look of a postseason bound team. 38-27, they knock off Cannon-McMillan. This was much needed. They had 2 really tough losses, Central Catholic, North Allegheny. They bounced back in a big way, and Dom Dietrich continues to deliver. He's been one of the best quarterbacks, not in Westmoreland County, in all of the WPIAL.
Yeah, wearing that number 18 for his dad, and now he's 9 yards away from setting the all-time school record for passing yards, and he was just unbelievable in the game. One thing impressed me about Hempfield was, again, the fact that, like you said, back-to-back weeks, Central Catholic, North Allegheny hanging it on them, and they're able to bounce back mentally and beat a team that they are more talented than in Cannon-McMillan. And I think that was really impressive. Dom spread the ball around a lot. I mean, you saw, Lucas Simmons had 3 touchdown catches. Kopus had a big game. Sebring had a big game as well for Hempfield. So they spread the ball around really nicely. They were able to get those big plays for both teams, right? In the game, you look back at it, there were a lot of big plays. There weren't necessarily long, grinded out drives. And then there were turnovers, as well in the game. Hempfield capitalized on a big turnover. They scored a touchdown in that big second quarter, and then they forced a turnover on the ensuing kickoff, and then they scored another touchdown after that. And I think that was a huge point in the game. Talked to Coach Kiefer. Obviously, he's going to say he doesn't like the fact that the defense gave up a lot of big plays, against Cannon-McMillan, but all in all, it was a good night for the Spartans.
And we will hear from the head coach of the Spartans in just a little bit. But, going back to the offense, there were some guys that we knew about coming into this season. Dietrich, very experienced. Jack Kopus. Aiden Steinbeiser was their primary running back a year ago as well. But, Sebring and Simmons, and we did hear hype about Simmons, but he hasn't played football in a couple of years. Sebring's been kind of an under-the-radar guy. When they can get contributions, those guys combined for 215 yards and 3 touchdowns, 13 receptions. That is just a monster performance. And Dietrich, we'll get to him a little bit later when we talk about the top performers. He threw for almost 350 yards. So this is a pretty robust offense. Even in those losses, he was still pretty efficient. He's a guy that it felt like he was 14 of 18 or, 16 of 22, just about every single game, win or lose. So he's always going to give him a chance, I think.
I agree with that. And when you can, again, spread the ball around, everybody knows the connection between Dom and Jack Kopus. You saw it last year. And of course, that's there this year as well. But when you're able to spread the ball around and get contributions from, again, like Sebring and Simmons, I think that makes the passing game, even more dangerous when you can't necessarily key in on one receiver. And having a big game like that, I think, is going to be huge for them going into Norwin this week.
Yeah, and I've said this before. It applies to both Hempfield and Norwin. You want to knock off one of those top 2 teams, but if you don't, you probably have to win 3 of the 4 other conference games. So getting the victory over Cannon-McMillan, much like Norwin getting the victory over Seneca Valley, those are the games they have to win. which makes this upcoming week's game even more significant, obviously, because it is Spartans and Knights. We'll touch on that certainly at length as the show progresses. The only remaining Westmoreland County team that is unblemished, it is still the Southmoreland Scotties as they head to Derry area and walk out with a 23-11 victory. I had to call this one. It was not the prettiest of games. There was a lot of penalties. There were some miscues. It wasn't great offense necessarily, but you're not going to win every game with great style and flair. And so for Dustin Schoaf's team, you're 1-0 in conference. It doesn't have to be a pretty victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. Dawson Wolf, I thought, was pretty impressive. Their defense in particular, very, very impressive in the second half.
I think that was huge for Southmoreland to get up by 2 scores like they did early because their defense is so good. And Derry's not a team that's going to be, throwing the ball over the yard. And I know Doherty obviously had a big game. But again, they don't have that necessarily that game-breaking style of an offense where they can come back, especially against the Southmoreland team that's really good on defense. So I think that was huge. Obviously, I know you did the game, Sean, but watching back to it, Derry driving into Southmoreland territory twice in the first half, 2 turnovers. Stanley Chapman had a big interception. So Derry has had a good season, but they have had games where they've made these mistakes where they could either win more comfortably or compete better or win a game. So obviously those were some issues, but I think we saw that Southmoreland defense again, stand up. And, the one thing that I did see, the punting game, keep an eye on that. That seems to be an issue for Southmoreland. Mikkel Darnell, their punter, a couple of weeks ago, the game I did against Ringgold had a couple of poor punts. And then, of course, an issue in the punting snap, I believe it was, right? The result in a safety. There
was twice. So Derry's only touchdown came when the Trojans got the football inside the Scotties 10 because of a similar issue on a punt. So they didn't get the punt off. And then to what you were saying, Darnell later in the game, which I went back and forth, John Bainbridge, was it the right decision or not? The snap went over his head. It took him back to like the 25. And then he just punted it back through the end zone to assure a safety, as opposed to having to worry about trying to scoop it up or maybe the Trojans offensively take over the 25. But yeah, realistically, other than that extremely short field, Derry area's offense didn't score a legitimate touchdown. I mean, again, they had a drive that went less than 10 yards for their only score, and then there was 2 safeties. So that is an area the Scotties will have to clean up. The penalties, a major area they're going to have to clean up. But there was 2 guys that impressed me. Let me first ask you, you did their game the prior week. Mm-hmm. Was there anyone that jumped out in a big, surprising way and caught your eye for the Scotties?
Well, I thought, obviously Jackson Mickens, but was it surprising?
You kind of assumed that he was going to be a big dog for them.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Stanley Chapman, was really solid.
That was the first name I was going to say. And actually, the other Stanley Betters, had a couple of really nice grabs. So it was Chapman, I thought, was maybe the best player on the field. And he was the only guy who could tackle Doherty one-on-one. Usually, even 2 Scotties couldn't tackle Doherty because he is an absolute bull. But Chapman, one-on-one, got the better of him. He, to me, really emerged as a crucial player that maybe I didn't know enough about.
Yeah, and like I was talking to someone before the game a couple of weeks ago, and that they were very happy with how Stanley had been playing all year on defense up to that point. So I'm like, I'm going to have to look out for Stanley Chapman tonight. And he came through as just one of those guys that, again, the game against Ringgold where Jackson Mickens went off, maybe a lot of those plays on defense don't happen if not for Stanley's play. I think the tip and interception that we had last week for our play of the week, I think Chapman forced that quick throw that got tipped. So, yeah, I mean, he's one of those, unsung heroes, but he also shows up a lot too.
And not to go too far into this because it's a different story for a different day. We did find out just recently that the Scotties have lost a player, Dave Kubuski, who transferred out to he's now playing with Anthony Smith.
How about that?
At Fairmont in West Virginia. Now he started the season with the Scotties, had a very first game where he was, one of their best players, but I don't think he's played since that first game. And you and I were kind of wondering what's going on. Well, now we have an answer. So, they've been doing this without him for, pretty much all season, but you do kind of wonder like what could have been if they had all the guys back. And yet it doesn't seem like it matters, right? It's next man up mentality, it feels like, with Coach Schoaf.
Yeah. I wonder that too. And that's not taking anything away from what Dawson Wolf has done. He's been really impressive to me. His leadership, his toughness, and all those things at quarterback. But it's tough to replace a Division I arm and Anthony Smith, and then Gabe Kabuski. You learn about, you're wondering where did he go, and then all of a sudden it comes out this week that he's in Fairmont with Anthony. And we don't need to dive too much into this, but I just if after the season starts, I don't know how, or the school year starts, I don't know how that you can just skip to another school. And I feel like there should be a deadline somewhere. But
yeah, he's played with the Scotties, and now he's playing with, are they the Polar Bears? Is that their name? I think they're the Polar Bears down there in Fairmont. Big addition for them. Maybe a big loss for Southmoreland, but so far it doesn't seem like they've missed a beat.
The Polar Bears.
Yes, Polar Bears.
I'm trying to think if there's any other team in the state of Pennsylvania that's a polar bear. I don't think so.
We need to get more creative nicknames.
We do.
Like I enjoy the Hampton Talbots and
the Big Macs.
The Big Macs are awesome. The Fighting Planets. We need more creative names. There's not a lot of Scotties. I think there's maybe only two.
Not many.
Union. I don't know if there's another one, but
there's a lot of Trojans. We got
Warriors, a lot of Wildcats and all that. Come up with an innovative, creative name for your school.
Riverhawks. Riverhawks is a good one.
And that, by the way, that's a new school. That's 10 years old at this point or whatever. Anyway, enough of that. We'll talk about the Leopards. That's not overused necessarily. Bell Vernon, oh man, it felt like they had an upset brewing. They were leading in the fourth quarter against Thomas Jefferson, but could not close it out. Big turnover late doomed them. TJ wins 14-10. I think this is, again, another positive sign for the Leopards, but moral victories don't count for a lot once you open conference play. They've been really close against some good teams. Unfortunately, just one or two mistakes cost them and negated what was otherwise a terrific performance by Curdy Wade.
Oh, Curdy Wade was so good, but unfortunately that fumble, results in Thomas Jefferson's go-ahead touchdown. And then Bell Vernon gets the ball back and he throws an interception, unfortunately. But, I saw what Scott Breyer had to say after the game. And, he said, hey, Curdy played really good. I mean, he played a great game. Looking at his final stats, you take away the turnovers. I know it's tough to, but, he was really good. And, you knew how important his role would be coming into this season, certainly as the quarterback and the playmaker on offense. But I didn't realize how many missed opportunities for Bell Vernon to win this game. You mentioned no moral victories. And a lot of people will say, well, hey, they were right there. So, that should, maybe that's good enough. But like, if you're right there and you lose the game, it's really hard, to swallow. I mentioned those two turnovers by Curdy, but Bell Vernon had a 16-play drive earlier in the game, had to settle for a Preston Rathaway field goal. Normally you drive 16 plays, you're thinking you're putting it in the end zone. Later in the game, they had a drive stall out with a turnover on downs at Thomas Jefferson's 8-yard line. So they got no points out of that. The Jaguars missed a field goal, but a roughing the snapper penalty gave TJ a first down. They ended up scoring a touchdown off of that. And then Bell Vernon, Rathway lined up for what would have been a school record 52-yard field goal. Whether he would have got it or not, we don't know, because the snapper bobbled the snap, or I should say the holder bobbled the snap.
He's got an incredible leg.
Yeah, I would have loved to see if he got it.
49-yarder this year.
No. He's so. I think that was the preview. That is the record now, right?
Yep.
He broke so he could have broke his own record. So you have all of those things happen to Bell Vernon. It's like, man, if maybe one of those things don't happen, maybe if they score instead of turning the ball over on downs at the 8-yard line, maybe they win the game. I don't know. So it's definitely hard to swallow. But at the same time, you do have to look at the positives as well.
Yeah, and let's be honest. If they play like that against the other teams in the conference, they should win.
Yeah.
I mean, I think most people still say, even though it's slightly a down year for TJ, they're still the cream of the crop in that conference. So you do that against Char Valley, which is looking like a pretty good team. You do that against Trinity, which has an incredible quarterback. It might be enough to win. And Chase Petrosky had a good game. He went over 100 yards rushing. They had Anthony DeCenzo go over 100 yards receiving, including a big play. So they're really, really close. And it feels like they are just, to your point, inches away from a signature victory. That would have probably completely changed their entire season if they knock off Thomas Jefferson.
It certainly would have, but you're right. Like it's a situation where keep playing how we're playing, play how we played against Thomas Jefferson. We're going to be okay. And, I look at their record and I don't believe that they're that they're as bad as their record says. They're not. I really don't believe that. They played some really good teams. And McKeesport, Aliquippa. So now I think they have a chance to really make some hay. But yeah, McKeesport, Aliquippa, Thomas Jefferson, that's not an easy start for sure.
Well, that was nearly a upset and a stunner. And I think a stunner went the other way against one of our Westmoreland County teams. Greensburg Central Catholic not only loses at Riverview, it was Raiders 26, Centurion 7. Now, sometimes you see that final score doesn't tell the whole story. It was more who was not out there contributing for GCC, Samir Crosby. That said, I mean, we're to the point of the season now, especially in the 1A Eastern Conference. This was not the first conference game. They are, well into their slate at this point. Can GCC even make the playoffs now? They've got some work to do. It's going to have to begin this week, but you just wonder that, that blowout loss against Clairton, it feels like maybe to some extent they're still reeling from it. And if they don't have their best players, they're not going to win games.
Well, and Jeanette's in the same boat, right? I feel like both of these teams are such, mirrors of one another coming into the year. They played in the WPO playoffs last year in the quarterfinals, and now, coming into this year with so many high expectations, and now both teams are kind of fighting for their playoff lives. And man, Clairton, they beat up Central, they beat up Jeanette. I mean, though both teams are really banged up right now. So like there's some other teams in this conference, like, Leechburg. And of course, nobody saw this coming with GCC losing to Riverview, that these other teams have really rose up. I mean, 40 rushing attempts for 242 yards in the game for Riverview, just wore down Central. And again, without Samir Crosby playing, it is definitely an uphill battle. We'll see if he's going to be healthy. No one seems to know much about the injury, what's going on with him. So nobody knows if he's going to play this week against Jeanette or not, but I'm sure he will do everything in his power to try to make that happen.
And remember, they did win against Brentwood the prior game. So they had that blowout loss against Clairton. They rebounded with a victory against the Spartans. And I told you, Flick, like I thought that this would be a tough test for them. You don't always say that about playing Riverview, but I think the Raiders have been pretty impressive. If Crosby was healthy, I still don't know that they win this game, because for whatever reason, we expected GCC and Jeanette, they returned so much from a year ago. They would just be clearly better this year than they were last year. It hasn't played out like that. And that's kind of sometimes each individual year, even if you have a similar roster, the team, for whatever reason, just doesn't click. And it still might happen for GCC. It still might happen for Jeanette, but it feels like they're starting to run low on time.
They really are, man. And now, they go up against one another, and that's what makes this game so crucial on Friday.
They're tied for fourth place currently with Frazier. So it's a three-way tie. Hold on. It's a four-way tie. Brentwood is also.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Right now, you look at, okay, Clairton's going to probably run away with it. I don't know that realistically Leechburg's going to threaten the Bears. And then Leechburg is sitting in a good spot. Now, Riverview has the hand up. So, we'll see in terms of how many teams get in, but it's not going to, I don't know that we're going to get both GCC and Jeanette into the postseason.
Central hasn't played Leechburg yet, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So that'll be, where is that game? I'm putting you on the spot now, buddy.
It is at home. They finish up with 3 straight home games.
Okay. Well, that'll be a crucial game for sure. I mean, obviously, then depending on what happens this Friday.
Yeah. So GCC's losses, Clairton, Riverview. Jeanette's losses, Clairton, Leechburg.
Right.
And then one of the teams will have a third loss this upcoming week, obviously, because they go head to head. Well, Flick, those are the big Westmoreland County stories, but I do think it's worth bringing up a story that's been making its way across the WPIAL. It started with Baldwin. It's now become more of a Fox Chapel story. So it's been just a dreadful season for the Highlanders. Let's be honest. They're a 5A school that's right now throwing out a roster that's probably more equal to a 2A school. I think they've got like 30 kids playing, and they're getting blown out. And so I believe it was maybe early last week, if maybe even like the prior weekend, when they threw out the idea of, can we shorten games? Can we play the entire game with the mercy rule, which is a running clock? I believe that is technically illegal. You can't do the running clock until you get to the 35-point second half threshold, but you can shorten quarters. And that's something we've seen before. I believe there's been some teams that, they were so overmatched that they decided to play 10-minute quarters.
Have they done that for an entire game, though? I know they do it in the second half.
I remember second half playing like 10-minute quarters. I don't recall that start to finish, that being the plan. But apparently you can manipulate the length of quarters. You can't enact the mercy rule from the get-go. That is not allowed. So anyway, Baldwin asked for that. And then I guess the Highlanders, they got some bad publicity. They rescinded that and said, we'll, play it straight up. But then after that kind of opened the door, Fox Chapel came in and said, well, can we do something similar to that? And so I believe that there was like a modified abbreviation of their game against Pine Richland. They played, I think, the first quarter standard time and then shortened every quarter after that. And so now it's a big debate. And what's followed is now Fox Chapel is even presenting like a way to get more competitive classifications to an extent, which isn't really classifications. It's just kind of their own way. I don't know what's going to come of this. I have long thought that what the PIHL does, which is high school hockey, where it's somewhat based on enrollment, but it's also somewhat based on success or lack thereof. To me, that would not be the worst idea in the world if a team is really struggling, maybe for, a 4-year stretch in a certain classification, they could move down one class. Or if they're dominating in a certain classification, they move up one class. But I don't think, a 5A school can't be playing 1A, right? I mean, that's kind of out of line. So I don't know what the answer is to any of this, but it does feel like there's going to be something on the horizon that could drastically change things, because we've seen a half dozen schools leave the WPIAL for football. We've also seen some bigger schools, 5A schools, that at this point seemingly don't even want to play full games even before it starts. So this is really kind of a new topic.
Oh man, yeah, we could do a whole Gridiron show, I think, on this topic. And you hear and you read things, and people have difference of opinions on one side of the spectrum and the other. Some people were saying, well, there's no way you can do this. You can't shorten games. You got to play them straight up. That's how they've always been, other than the mercy rule. Then you have other people saying, well, there's absolutely no chance in hell that Fox Chapel is going to beat Pine Richland. They're not even going to compete with them. It's not even just a victory. It's sometimes like if they're not even going to compete with them. Ninth graders that have to play because they're thrust into duty and they're not ready for high school. So that's the safety issue that they broach there. So like, I don't know. I see both sides. To me, I really don't think you can shorten games. Like, I think that's just a slippery slope, because then it's like, okay, well, at the end of the year, maybe a team's kind of banged up and it's like, well, we want to shorten quarters because we only have one game left. I don't know. I just feel like that opens Pandora's box when you start doing things like that. But I do think that it's interesting. I know Mike O'Brien, the AD at Fox Chapel, has proposed this new format, if you will, in high school football, where I was looking at it a little bit today. Like, for instance, I mean, we don't need to go totally into it, but I kind of saw that Penn Trafford, Hempfield, and Norwin would be together. Maybe Fox Chapel was going to be in there somewhere with them.
They're definitely not in the highest one. I could tell you that
okay.
much.
Penn Hills, I believe, was in there. Woodland Hills, I believe. So I mean,
some of that's based on the roster size, and I think that's a major issue, because what you're going to do then is you want your roster to be a little bit smaller. You're going to turn away kids who want to play that you don't think might contribute, because you say, oh, we could drop down if we have a smaller roster. Yeah. Or why are you being punished for having great involvement, even, so to me, roster size isn't really going to be a viable path.
I don't know that it was the be all end all. But maybe
I think it was kind of a formula.
Yeah. He was just kind of, I thought it was more of a, like, this is just showing maybe where, because of consistent roster size, that this is where teams will, likely be. I think, with North Allegheny, there was, in Pittsburgh Central Catholic, Pine Richland was in that Well,
I
league or
think that's
class.
I believe that's where Penn Trafford was.
I don't think so. I think they were in with Hempfield and Norwin, from what I saw.
I think that was all in the big one.
I think, but they were under a different heading or something like that.
Now I'm trying to find this on the fly. This is
now we weren't going to get into it. Now we're definitely getting into. But I saw like Upper St. Clair.
Here's my question: do you think rewarding teams, if you want to say rewarding, by moving them up if they have sustained success, or dropping teams if they have shown a history of struggling, is that something that we can do to explore? Maybe Fox Chapel and Baldwin, for instance, would have been playing in 4A this whole season.
The only thing I'd be concerned about is if a team had like a couple of really good years and maybe they normally don't, and then all of a sudden you have those kids graduate. Now all of a sudden, well, I'll give you a perfect example. What about Derry, right? I mean, they had those great years, and then they just kind of, no offense to Derry, but kind of just dropped off the cliff there and are working their way back. But like if they moved up to at 4A or whatever, I mean, it would have been a bad 2 years. But I mean, I understand what you're saying. I don't completely disagree with it. There are just certain times where I think that would hurt. Yes,
I agree with that. And we've seen that happen in hockey as well. But ultimately, it does seem like something's going to have to change, because if not, you're going to have teams leaving the WPIAL. Yeah. You might have kids not playing football. And you don't want people at Baldwin or Fox Chapel or some other schools that struggle to say, you know what, I'm not even going to play because, what's in it for me. Also, this is something that happens to small schools, right? Like Springdale's canceled a game this season. We've already seen Shadyside Academy not play Clairton. So like, it almost seems like you're sort of getting a free pass to not play games as well.
Well, and I just want to add, one thing. And yeah, I mean, it seems like there should be some kind of punishment, but my thinking is if Mike was going to go about doing this, I would imagine that he was able to get some support from schools. I mean, I wouldn't think he would just, put this proposal together, just lone wolf and not get any support from any other schools. I would think that there at least is some interest from other schools that they would like to do this. And I did talk to a Westmoreland County athletic director yesterday, and I said, is there support for this? Like, is this like a legit, I don't know if it's going to happen, but like, is there at least support for it? And he said, I think so. He said something needs to change. So I don't know. I don't know if this is the formula or not, but I guess it's good that they're talking about something.
Yeah, I would think 5 years from now, something will be different. We'll find out what that is down the road, but this is certainly starting the conversation, if nothing else.
I'll probably have more gray hair.
Yes. Well, just keep wearing that hat, and it's harder to see. All right. That was a long opening segment. Woo. We'll take a break. Hopefully you're still sticking around, because we got a lot more that we're going to get to. We'll run down all the scores, plays of the week, Nick Kiefer, Giovanni Rochoff, our special guests, and a look ahead with the Week 6 preview. That's all upcoming right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Game day or any day, the power of Bowser is here to get you where you need to go. From the latest Hyundai, Nissan, Subaru, Chevrolet, GMC, Buick, and Genesis models to quality pre-owned vehicles, Bowser has the perfect lineup for your drive. Look for a winning deal. Bowser's got the plays, great financing, top trade-in values, and a selection that's always in season. From the first whistle to the final buzzer, Bowser Automotive is your hometown MVP. Bowser Automotive, Route 51 South on top of the hill. PowerofBowser.com.
Some moments on the field go beyond the game. They shape who we become. At Home Team Collections, we honor those moments with the care and craftsmanship they deserve. Because these moments aren't just memories, they're a legacy worth preserving. Any team, any sport, any logo. Visit HomeTeamCollections.com today and save $10 off your first order.
Welcome back as we continue here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron, powered by Bowser. Well, Flick, we got to a lot of topics in that first segment, so we'll quickly run down the Week 5 scores as well as the top performers. You can go back and watch or listen to many of these games, including Hempfield Area's 38-27 victory over the Big Macs. You can also watch Southmoreland's 23-11 triumph against Derry Area. Clairton 57, Jeanette nothing. Rough go for the Jayhawks. They also lost Jace Powell. Did not play in the second half due to injury. He had just 2 grabs for 38 yards. Kiski area over Franklin Regional 14-7. So Colin Haw, the former player for the Panthers, gets a victory against his former team now as the head coach of the Cavs. Thomas Jefferson 14-10 over Bell Vernon area. You can go back and listen to that game as well. We talked about that. Curdy Wade 13 of 17 through just 2 incompletions, but also through 2 interceptions. Woodland Hills 33, Greater Latrobe 9, and it was the Scoop Smith show again. He scored touchdowns 3 different ways, receiving, rushing, and a punt return. Mitch Horner had all the points for Greater Latrobe, 3 field goals. Mount Pleasant 41, Yawk 7. I talked about Scoop Smith scoring different ways. Dane Firmstone did the same. Passing, rushing, and a punt block return touchdown for the QB for the Vikings. Elizabeth Forward 49, Greensburg Salem 7. Brody Chismore did not play in that one. Chris Berger got to start a quarterback through 3 interceptions. Burrell 29, East Allegheny 28. Antonio Perkins 180 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns. Flick, I know he was certainly one of the guys that was in contention for our player of the week. He has been unbelievable his first year at the Buccaneers. Yeah, and again, you thought that Trey Corey, like he was last year, would be the absolute workhorse, but it's been Perkins. Now, Corey had a good game as well, but, Perkins has just been so crucial, to their team this year. And he's just a sophomore. So, they've got big things on the horizon with him, no doubt. Freeport 42, Valley 7. South Allegheny 62-14 over Ligonier Valley. The Gladiators look like maybe a favorite in Class 2A. We talked about it earlier. Saturday afternoon football, Riverview 26-7 over Greensburg Central Catholic. And then we had some non-conference games and some notable developments. Norwin 21, North Hill 17. However, Tristan Tavares was injured in the game. Jake Knight did not play in the game. So what does that mean for the rest of the conference ledger for the Knights? We'll see. They certainly needed to get a bounce-back victory. They did so against North Hills, but was it a Pyrrhic victory? Penn Trafford 33, Plum 14. Cody Yakimelli 4 touchdowns for the Warriors and a victory against the Mustangs. Southside Beaver knocked off Monessen 21-7. IUP beats up on Seton Hill 40-13. You can go back and watch that one, although if you're a Griffins fan, you might not want to watch too much of it. And Hiram with a 40-38 victory over St. Vincent. Did you see that he did it again, Flick? Jake Phillips. Jake Phillips, baby. He broke a record. 400 yards passing again. And they lost. Oh, jeez. Whew. Yeah, he's 0 for 2 this season when he passes for 400 plus yards. Did they run the ball